Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Stories of Hope. And today I'm talking to Jay, and he is in Nevada. And Jay reached out to me from TikTok, and he had listened to Stories of Hope and said that he wanted to share his story. And so we chatted a little bit, and he told me about the insights that he's had and the experience. And I'm just so excited. And also, Jay, you reached out to me because you felt like it would be really helpful to share your story as a young adult. And I just love that. And so I'm going to pass it over to you if you want to introduce yourself and start sharing, and we'll just have a conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I just want to start by saying thank you so much for having me on here, giving me the opportunity to have this kind of platform to really use my voice, not only to share and spread awareness about this kind of stuff with young adults, but just this kind of anxiety and whatnot in general. I just really want to put it out there and give some hope to, people that are currently struggling through this process. So I am 18 years old. I recently turned 18 last year, October. So, I'm fresh to this, all the stressors of life, gaining all these new insights and opportunities and responsibilities. It's tough. But the first thing I'll put out there is I've never really been the kind of person to be anxious or having struggle with anxiety overall. Up until recently, I've never really had anxious thoughts, all these symptoms, whatnot, uh, besides regular anxiety. Now, I don't feel like that's a really good term, but when I say regular anxiety, I want people to understand, like when you got up in front of the class to do a presentation or, the first time you're going out on a date. Like I've had that anxiety of my life, just not this kind of anxiety. Um, but before I get into my story, I do want to give a little bit of context that a lot of people from my kind of research and from my listening to these stories, a lot of kind of people have developed or kind of were pushed into this kind of cycle of anxiety because of different aspects, like different things, scenarios and whatnot. My scenario was kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of stupid. And as an 18-year-old, I like to embrace the fact that 18-year-olds, there's room for making dumb decisions. There's room for making stupid things and whatnot. And that's part of life, and you grow. So I don't want anybody who hears this and shares a similar experience to say and feel bad for themselves and be like, why did I do that? And I got myself into it. So I am healing. I like to say that right now I am healing. I am not healed 100%. I will never feel like anybody has healed 100% because we are all in the process of healing. I still, just to put this out there, I still get, anxious from time to time. I still get some intrusive thoughts. I still get this. It's not completely all the way gone, but it's a lot better. I'm telling you, it's like skyrocket. Like I feel like I'm back, in my roots. So all this started about maybe 2 months ago, right? 2 months ago, um, I had gotten home from work and I remembered that someone close to me, either a friend, I can't remember at the time, had gave me a weed edible. And that's where the story gets interesting. A lot of times I say that and people are like, "Oh God, here we go." But I want people to understand that my intention with this edible was not so much, "Oh, I want to get high like teenagers. Oh, I want this." It was simply out of curiosity. It was simply out of, "Hey, I want to see what this does for me," because everybody's got to try it once in their life, right? So it was around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. I took the edible. Now, I was instructed by said person to take one piece of it. So imagine a Kit Kat bar. Imagine how it has four different pieces of chocolate. And it was 100 milligrams in total. I didn't take the whole bar. I took one piece. Uh, in the world of THC, in the world of weed and whatnot, you are instructed to start off small. As a beginner and a newbie, I had never done that. So I didn't think you'd have to, nibble on it and start off small. I just took the piece and went full send it. Thought I was gonna have the best night ever. Just a disclaimer, never done weed before, drugs, up until that point. That was my first ever time trying that stuff out. I lay in bed and I feel like I'm having a great time, 30 minutes pass by. I'm like, okay, I think it's, I don't think it's hitting yet. And that's when I start to lay down. So I'm watching YouTube. All of a sudden, my heart starts racing. It's going from 110 to 120 to 130 to 140. I start freaking out. I have this kind of experience where I start to lose control over my own body, and I start to panic. I'm thrown into this rush of panic. Part of my mind just says, no, you took a pill or you took an edible and you're experiencing it. Calm down, you're gonna be fine. But another part of my brain is saying, hey, you're freaking out. You gotta get up. You know what I mean? I'm shaking, I'm running around my room, I'm hyperventilating, I feel like I can't breathe. And I'm seeing hallucinations, I'm seeing floaters everywhere, I'm seeing spiders crawling down left and right. I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going on? I just took this little thing. So in my mind, the one thing I can recall thinking about is, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'm like, either this is an overdose, this is, I'm gonna die because I'm gonna do something stupid, or I'm gonna black out and I'm just gonna faint altogether. So I'm thinking, I'm fine. I just gotta ride this out. But my panic is to the level where I'm like, I gotta go run to my parents. So being 18 years old, obviously, I still live with my parents. So I'm across the hall from them. So my heart beats beating so fast to the point where I can't even feel it anymore. Like I start to go numb here. I start to feel like all hot and tingly. So I run to my parents' room. I run to my father and I start, frantically begging him, like, hey, help, help, help. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, feel my heart. So I grab his hand and I place it on my heart. And, he's looking at me. He's like, yeah, that's fast. Like, what's going on? At the time, I start to hallucinate. The one thing going through my mind is any of this real? Because part of me believes, is this because of all the weed? Like, am I feeling this? Like, is this even real? Am I just in my bed chilling and tripping out? Or am I actually going through this? So I, rush to my mom, rush to my dad. It's to the point I'm freaking out so bad. It's to the point where my mother has my head almost like I was a child again, almost like I was 6 years old. She's cradling me, like coddling me almost. My head's on her thigh, and she's rubbing my back and stroking my back, and she's singing to me. She's like, "You're okay, you're okay, you're fine," and that calms me down. That puts me in a sense of relief and reassurance. I'm like, okay, I'm fine. Even though I'm still freaking out and my thoughts are running 3 miles per hour, I'm like, I'm fine. We put this heart monitor kind of watch Fitbit thingy, and my dad recalls that, I'm at 170 beats per minute. I'm at 180. Had I gone any higher, we would have had to go to the ER. Thankfully, we didn't. So I finally fall asleep. The day after that, I wake up feeling fine, like any other day. No symptoms of anxiety, no this, no that. I wake up and I have a great day. I'm thankful for being alive. I talk to my parents and I'm like, thank you for yesterday. And I'm all emotional and crying. I'm like, I could have died. Thank you. And they're like, oh, you're so overdramatic. So that plays out. Another day goes by. And that's when I felt like things really started to go downhill. As the days went by, I'd notice I'd just get this overall, there'd be these times of just waking up with a racing heartbeat, anxiety all over. At that time, I didn't know it was anxiety, but I'd get this sick feeling in my stomach. I'd get my heart just beating like crazy, feeling like this, something's gonna happen to me, like nothing's right. Like I don't really know how to explain it correctly, but it felt like something was off. That, and my breathing was one thing, the shakiness and whatnot was one thing. I couldn't sleep. It was stopping me from sleeping me. It was stopping me from sleeping. I had really bad insomnia. For the first 3 days, I didn't sleep at all. I thought I was one of my biggest fears was I feel like I was going crazy. I feel like, oh my God, I've lost my sense of reality. I'm in psychosis. 2 more days and they're gonna throw me in the psych ward. I'm over here thinking like it's over for me. Like I just took this thing and I've messed up my life. I've rewired my brain to just feel high all the time and I feel like I'm crazy. So that was one thing. As the days progressively went on, I started to lose my appetite. I started to become constipated. I couldn't, I know it's a little TMI, but I got constipated. I couldn't use the bathroom as frequently as I used to. A lot of my emotions were numb. And I want to explain that because not too many people really understand that as much as I do. Because DPDR, in a sense, is just its own little thing. Like there's anxiety and there's DPDR, and both feed each other. I want people to understand that one feeds the other. And DPDR is one of the biggest things I've struggled with when it came to dealing with the anxiety as a whole, because it's just an overwhelming feeling of just not being you. Like you feel weird. You feel like a movie's playing out in front of you. You're just watching your body do things. Obviously in your head, things are real. Like your subconscious tells you, hey, everything's real. But at the same time, you're like, is it real? Like, is this real? Am I doing this? Like, what am I doing? Where am I? One of the biggest thing I struggled with was my emotions. So I couldn't find myself to cry. I couldn't get myself to laugh. I couldn't get myself to smile. And even if I did smile, it'd be a smile like, it'd be a real quick smile and then it'd go straight back to a straight face. Like I'd find my muscles in my actual little face were so tired of fake smiling that I was just like, nah, I just want to stay straight faced. So that was one thing I struggled with the most. And that was maybe about a month ago. That was all, just left and right, just going downhill. I was in a really dark place. And I can remember staying up till around 3 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, just going on Reddit, going on TikTok, searching up all these forums, trying to find people to relate to, and trying to get to the answer of why am I feeling like this? What is going on? And I remember seeing a couple Reddit posts saying, oh, like I've had a similar experience and I've been stuck like this for 2 years, 10 years. I've been like this my whole life. And that really scared me. Like that made my heart drop essentially, because I was like, I tried this once and I feel like I've just ruined my entire life. Like now I'm going to experience this the rest of my life. So that was that. I feel like I really stepped into the kind of recovery kind of slash healing and understanding process when I stopped thinking. And I know it's crazy. I know it sounds stupid off the bat, but that's when I found you. That's when I found your page. That's when, for some odd reason, I was scrolling on TikTok, and you came up. And I remember one of the first videos was you talking about DPDR, and the fact that the more you're like, oh, I'm having DPDR, like what's going on, the more you're gonna want to think about it, versus if you sit there and really just acknowledge it and be like, all right, things are gonna feel a little funky, I'm gonna feel like, I'm not real or whatever. But if I just continue through it and push through it despite feeling all fuzzy and whatnot, it'll start to dissipate. And at first, when I was starting to apply these techniques and whatnot, I didn't see a remarkable difference. But as time went on, as the days went by, I wasn't having anxiety attacks every single day. I wasn't having panic attacks every single day. I wasn't having racing intrusive thoughts at one point. It got better. I was able to hang out. And I've never been the type of person to be a shut-in. So I've always been the type of person to feel better when I'm surrounded by friends and whatnot. So the one thing that had helped me and is still helping me now is just go, go, go. Like not really go, 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 essentially like keeping yourself busy, but like go hang out, like go do this. Even if it's just to take your mind off of the anxiety and whatnot, go hang out, go be with some friends, do this, go eat at this place. Like it really helped me a lot. And I just felt like I benefited from all those videos. Um, Another thing I want to share about is the intrusive thoughts. Those things are scary. I'd say I wouldn't really rank, you know, what's scary and what's not, but in terms of those intrusive thoughts, they would get to me a lot. Just to share some, right? A lot of the reoccurring thoughts weren't about, they weren't essentially about suicide, right? I have never been the type to be suicidal. I have never been, I want to kill myself. I've never been actively wanting to participate that. But there's always, I will say during my journey, I've had intrusive thoughts where it's like, what if I go crazy and I lose control and then that happens? You know what I mean? What if it gets to a point where I can't take it anymore and that happens? And that definitely scared me. There was intrusive thoughts about what if you never get better and, you stay in this forever. Intrusive thoughts about what if this is all not real and you're just in a coma or something like that. So what really helped me deal with these intrusive thoughts was to acknowledge them, view them as a person. It's sort of funny how I deal with it, but when I get an intrusive thought, the thought process is, it'll be the intrusive thought. And I'll simply view it as a person and go, you know what, that's a great idea. That's a really, funny idea, but I don't think that's happening. So we're just gonna, I'm gonna acknowledge you, but then I'm just gonna push you off to the side after and continue with what I'm doing. Despite the fact that after I've already acknowledged it, I already know it's gonna keep going on in my head. But as long as I've already acknowledged that thought, I know that it'll go away with time. And that another thought will, pop up in time. So that's really how I dealt with those intrusive thoughts. In terms of the physical symptoms, that's something I really struggled with. I can remember every single night, and my parents got really fed up quick. I can remember every single night waking up around 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, busting open my parents' door to be like, feel my heart, I'm freaking out again. And they're like, Jay, you're fine, relax, just calm down. Sometimes your heart will palpitate, it's because of this and because of that. And I'm like, I know, but this isn't normal. See, the reoccurring feeling I always get was like nobody really understands what I'm going through because they're not going through it. You know, my parents will say, "Hey, my heart palpitates, but not in the same way that mine is palpitating." Because mine is fed off of anxiety. Mine is fed off of this and this and that, but yours is fed off of something else. So I can't really relate like that. Um, I remember times where there was this one time actually where I decided that in the midst of my journey, I was like, "Hey, I feel great tonight. I'm gonna get a good night's rest." I said that I'm gonna go to sleep 10:30. I wanted to, sleep as best as I could, see if that helped. I remember as soon as I laid my head down and started watching TikToks and fall asleep, that just kicked in, and it lasted. I don't know if anybody's ever experienced this before, but I kid you not, I couldn't sleep that night. My palpitations lasted from around 11:30 all the way to maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning the next day. That's what really scared me. That's when I begged my mom and dad. I said, hey, you know, through all the forums and TikTok videos I've researched, everybody else's heart palpitations go away within like 30 minutes to an hour. Mine lasted like 7 hours, 8 hours. I'm like, there's something definitely wrong. So that night, we took me to urgent care. I told them the entire story, whatnot, and they said, "Hey, it's really just anxiety. It's just anxiety." I was like, and I can I can remember sitting there in disbelief, being like, "No, no, 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 no. There's something wrong. There's something you guys aren't picking up." And I'm like, "Take me to the cardiologist. Take me to this. Take me to that." And I can remember them saying, like, we did an EKG, we did everything. I'm sure everybody on here listening to this knows what an EKG is. We did heart scans, we did this, we did that. Like, there's nothing more much we can do besides a study. And if it's I think it's like a 4-day thing where they hook you up and whatnot and measure your heart and whatnot. And I was gonna do that, but it costed too much. So I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. So they sent me home. My doctor prescribes me with hydroxyzine. And I know in the anxiety world, that's a very familiar term because for people that struggle with sleep, it's basically just a narc. It's basically just to get you to sleep. Not so much to help the anxiety, but just so that way you can rest and really get that sleep. I, till this day, have not taken it. And that's one thing on its own. I've always feared not psychiatric help, but just medication in general. I've been the type of person to prefer natural remedies over, taking a pill because I see these videos of people getting dependent. And, hey, I never wanted to live a life where I was like, in order for me to live my life and be happy, I've got to take this, I've got to swallow it, and I see all these young people that are, nowadays being prescribed Zoloft and Lexapro and Xanaxes. And I'm like, wow, that really scares me. I don't want to do that. And one of my biggest concerns that I said to the doctor was like, hey, I don't want to be put on any medication that will make me like that. And he was real good at reassuring me because he was like, think of it as like a Benadryl. He told me, think of it as a Benadryl. It's not so much as high class as a Xanax or whatnot. It's not addictive. And that word really helps me a lot because non addictive meant, okay, I can take it when I need to and I'm not going to be dependent on it. Needless to say, I still didn't even take it. But this is the funny story. I came home that night. So after urgent care and after I got my prescription, came home, I was drained. And I just ate some dinosaur nuggets, sipped on some sleepy time tea, and I went to bed just fine. I didn't know how it worked, through a miracle, whatnot. I just went to bed just fine. So from speaking on that experience, now and then I'll have days where I do struggle with insomnia. I've gotten better with it, through the help of teas and sleep sprays and whatnot, natural remedies. I've actually alleviated it. So that's not one of my biggest concerns anymore. Yes, there will be a day or two where I stay up all night and like I'm tired, but like I get through it. It's not as anxiety inducing anymore. Um, One of the other things I wanted to talk about was everybody always talks about the anxiety itself, just not the exhaustion and the fatigue and the tiredness that comes with it. And for a while, I was getting it mixed up with depression because, I've never really been the type of person to be depressed. Like I'm always up and about. I keep myself organized. I always do my personal hygiene, even though I'm not looking too tough right now. I always keep up with this, that. I'm a very tidy person. I'm a very enthusiastic, always on social media, whatnot. Um, so when I found myself just wanting to sleep and just wanting to do nothing but be in my bed, an alarm went off. And I was like, oh my God, is this depression? Like, is this anxiety and depression now? Because this is one thing. If we take this and combine it together, that's a whole nother thing. You know what I mean? And it's all this self diagnosing. It's all this, oh my God, I have intrusive thoughts. What if I have OCD? Or I can't do this. What if I have ADHD? What if I have ADD? All this stuff just popping up and misunderstood. And I'm like, first it was anxiety. Now it's like 10, a full list of just all these mental disorders that I think I have. So that really, that can be expected. The tiredness, the fatigue, the just wanting to go to sleep and stay asleep for the entire day is completely normal. I want people to understand that, if you experience these kind of symptoms, it's not that it may not be that you have depression. It may not be that you're lazy. I want people to be a little nicer to themselves because I tend to have a lot of people that I know that beat themselves up over it. And I'm like, no, your body just needs rest. Like you're always up on the go and you're feeling these symptoms mentally, emotionally, and physically, you're gonna need some rest. So that's one of the things I really wanted to point out. Lastly, before I let you ask whatever questions you need to ask, because I know I'm talking a lot, is really just about the lonely. I wouldn't say it's lonely, but anxiety can be one of the most isolating things out there, and it can be really tough because you feel like you're so alone. You feel like no one understands you. You feel like what you're going through is completely different from what other people are going through. And you find it really hard to find reassurance for yourself. And I want people to understand that if you're the type of person that has to seek reassurance from someone else just to, feel good and to feel okay, no shame in that game. Because I definitely needed that reassurance. My parents were really up on me, and I was it was at the point where I was sleeping with my mother at one point. Like I was sleeping on the floor in the same room just so I could sleep. So I want people to, feel a little bit better about that. But that's my story so far. Now I'm here. I'm doing better. Obviously, like I said before, just to reiterate, I still get those symptoms. I still get DPDR when I'm out and about, but I've learned to deal with it. I've gotten intrusive thoughts before and I still get them on the daily, but I deal with it. And it's not, I know it's easier said than done. And I know it's not so easy as, just don't think about it. But when you really sit there and stop intellectualizing, stop trying to understand, stop asking, and just be like, if I can't solve it and I don't know the answer, just leave it at that. If you don't know the answer to what's going on and why you're feeling this way, leave it at that. Continue with life. I felt that instead of implementing all these exercise routines and changing your diet and whatnot, it's as simple as just going back to life regularly. Start going back into your routine. Whatever you were doing the day before all this anxiety started, do it. Go right back to it. You know what I mean? So that's really where I'm at right now. And yeah.
Well, I absolutely loved that. And Samantha, who was, I think, the person who I've talked to before, she said, I'm healing through living. And I think that every single person that I've talked to so far in these stories of hope, they're like, well, yeah, I'm still healing. Like I still have my days. And I think it's so hopeful because where you said it's so common when we feel so strange. I love how you touched on all of the different areas. Like, I don't think we've talked about physical exhaustion because it's like your brain's running a marathon. Adrenaline is coursing through our body, and
Yeah.
that's why we can, because it's so cool that we can activate fight or flight. That's really helpful if we are really being chased by a bad guy. But like
Mhm.
our muscles are getting ready. So no wonder we get exhausted. But I love everything that you shared because to me it's about understanding. It was like, here's another reason to let go of that worry because there's all these what keeps it going. And I think you said this so beautifully. It's the fear. Oh, but maybe this is more than anxiety. Maybe this is depression. Maybe this is OCD. Maybe this is a heart attack. And to understand also, I think, yes, go, I don't want anyone to chalk anything up to anxiety, but almost every single person that I've worked with or listens, they go to the doctor and they're like, oh yeah, this is, um, where do I want to touch on? One, it's so common to think, but this must be worse. My
Mhm.
experience must be worse. And that's why I think it can be so lonely for me. And that's why I get so excited that we're having this conversation. I never met anybody in real life who like experienced anxiety the way I did. Now I've talked to thousands of people and I'm like, "Oh, but when I was in it, didn't have anybody around me." And so it was like, "Oh my God, like I am really broken. Like this is really intense." Like and and then it did make me feel lonely. And I think I'm so excited that you're sharing your story and that also you came into this understand like, oh, this kind of you started healing pretty early on, that you realized I love when you said whatever you were doing the day before, do that. Like it's because to me, you didn't innocently overcomplicate it. Um, which is amazing. Like so cool because we are designed really beautifully to, just as if we break our leg, a doctor doesn't heal it. We don't heal it with like, okay, so now what am I going to do to exercise my leg? Obviously
Right.
some
You just
specific,
let it be.
you
Let
just
it be.
let it be. Um, and that's why we experience DPDR for a variety of reasons. And I love that you're talking about having it from weed because there's a woman who's in my community who's an adult, like a mid and her started from weed. And the more I have some videos where we've talked about that, and she realized that she hadn't forgave herself, and for 20 years she'd been beating herself up. That and then by just she realized, oh my God, I could just forgive myself. Like because sometimes I actually experienced it because I was starting a medication and I just cycled myself up faster than my psychiatrist. Like it was dumb. I was also 30 and or 28 or something. Like it was dumb, but it was also it is what it is, and so
Right.
I think to say I love that you started off by saying I can forgive myself. I see there's I just it was I don't even have much to add because I think you did such an amazing job of going through so many common symptoms that I'm so grateful that you did because sometimes people can say, oh, well, he didn't mention intrusive thoughts. And it can be so normal because sometimes people are looking, is he going to mention my symptom? What
Mhm.
about when you don't sleep? You know what? He just said he had heart palpitations just lasted a few minutes, but you're like, no, mine was like 10 hours.
Mine was long. Mine was
Yeah.
long.
Yeah. Um, and I completely agree that um, we can heal through living and we are designed human beings have an inbuilt healing system for our mind and so there's really less for us to do and having an understanding can help us like kind of leave ourselves alone, leave our thinking alone because our nerves get so tired, we get mentally and physically and emotionally exhausted because of how hard we're trying. But when people don't understand that, which I didn't for 7 years, so I totally get it, we're like, oh my God, well, I got to work harder. I got to think more. I got to scan. I got to monitor.
Mhm.
And we really stop living our normal life. And I love that you talked about how helpful it is to go, out and about, and you might experience something. And that's what it does sometimes take a few months for people, like where they start feeling better, but it's not, some people it's instant, but for most people that I work with, it kind of sometimes just takes a few months where it comes, then it goes. And then it's like, oh, that was a thing of the past.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely talk about setbacks. Setbacks are truly one of the biggest things that happens because this month in general has been a better month. Needless to say, like a way better month. Intrusive thoughts, like I said, everything's still there, but it's manageable. I've gained the tools I need to manage it. And it's not as bad as it was when it first started. Because when it was first started, it was to the point where it was debilitating. You know, I still go to work. I'm able to go to work now. Like I'm able to go back to work and work myself. I'm able to go to the gym again. I'm able to go, I can eat what I want to eat again. I can eat when I want to do, I can do what I want to do, live and, be out there with my friends and resume life. But what I want to tell people and want everyone to understand is when you have those setbacks, um, the healing process is not sunshine and butterflies. It's not there's going to be a one day where you feel better and then that day is just how it's going to be for the rest of the week. No, there's going to be days where it's going to come back, probably even harder than it has before, and it'll come back. But, you really got to know in that sense, there's going to be days where that happens, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm taking two steps back. A lot of the times I like to refer it as I feel like I'm taking one step forward only to take two steps back. When in reality, these are just, little roadblocks. These are things that are going to happen on your healing journey. That doesn't, necessarily mean you're not healing anymore and that, you're back to square one. But, this is just something you've got to overcome. You're going to get through it. You know what I mean? You've done this before.
Yes. And I love that you said you've done this before, because I think we can see this in any time we're learning something new. Where say someone's running or they're taking up a different sport, and I'll just talk about running because that's maybe something I have more experience with. If you're run and you have like an inflow run and like the 3 miles goes by so fast or whatever. And like, if you've ever had any instruction on running and how to run with your form, you're like, oh my God, that was so amazing. And then you wish every single run's going to be like that. Every run, it's
Right.
going to be, I'm going to be on pace. I'm going to do this. And it's not how it is, because that's
Nope.
just not how life works, and the thing is, we can never go back unless we had a time machine. So when somebody knows that, but I love that you're talking about this because I think it's these common unhelpful thoughts that we can have. It makes so much sense, like for our brain, okay, this clicks. Everything's going to be up from here, whether it's running or any hobby that we have or any instance in life. So I said, I love that you said, I know how to do this, because whether you're a dancer or you play guitar or you play soccer or you're in debate, like we're not killing it every day. Like we're not on. That's just the part of being humans. It's this up and down experience. But the less personally and less seriously you can take it. I know when people do that, they get over themselves. They don't take it
Right.
so seriously. You pretty much never have a bad day. It's for a few minutes, because also if you let the day be the day, you're not thinking about it. The thing is, you can just let yourself be and feel without trying to do something. It's like
Mhm.
it flows so much faster, because I think a lot of times people get stuck. I don't want to feel anxious. I don't want to feel DPDR. And then if they do, oh, well, what am I going to do? Rather than, okay, it's here and I'm just going to keep hanging out. And if we let it be there, like experience is meant to flow. And so I think when we don't, I know I'm saying this again, like for the third time, but it's like, if I don't take it so personally and so seriously, because if I take it personally, what am I doing wrong? Why am I having this experience?
Yep.
There's never a good reason to have more thinking, and there's never a good reason for a bad feeling. But I think sometimes we think it's justified because it's like, oh, why am I experiencing DPDR? Was it the sleep? And was it something I ate? And when we start thinking more, and also we can constrict it. And when we just don't take it so personally, don't take it so seriously, we drop out of it. We can have an arms open wide, like, oh, this is my experience right now. It just comes and goes. And it's like
Mhm.
and I think I've never had a bad day. Have I had, this doesn't mean there's not days where I'm like, "Ugh," it's like up and
Right.
down.
Right.
But if I get out of my own way, It's usually more short. Sometimes I have a funkier day, like, you know what I mean? But
Absolutely.
if you're not resisting it, to me, and that's what I've known, if I don't resist it and take it so personally, and that's why I love having this conversation, because I think it helps people take it less personally and less seriously. Cause it's like, oh, I can see myself in Jay's story. And maybe you just see yourself in the beginning of your story, but I hope that that I hope people listening know that your experience is what they can have too. One more of going back into your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I loved, first off, I love that analogy. Oh my God, that makes so much sense. Because it's almost like, say you are running, picture your intrusive thoughts as a person who's running. The more and more you're going to run, right? Not everybody can be Usain Bolt and just keep running, for 30,000, miles and whatnot. Eventually, you're going to get tired and you're going to want to stop and you're going to want to calm down and just relax, you know? Think of that as your intrusive thoughts. Think about that as your mind. It's going to run. It's going to do, you're going to have those what ifs. You're going to have this and this and this and this and that. But over time, the more you acknowledge it, just like how runners will acknowledge, hey, I'm running, I'm going fast, let's take a second to calm down. That is essentially how your intrusive thoughts and your brain works. You speak upon this all the time in your TikToks that we have this wisdom, the human body in itself, the human psyche has this wisdom and ability that is innate within all of us to bring us back to clarity, to bring us back to balance, and keep us afloat. And I feel like it's really beautiful that in anxiety, as debilitating as it can be and as horrible it can be for some people, there will always be hope. There will never be this, no, you have anxiety, this is your life now. And I love to tell, not other people, but just I love to tell myself, you may have anxiety, right? You may have anxiety you've never had in your life before, right? I like to, I found myself often ruminating, I've never struggled with this before. Like, why am I now, why am I like this? And it was just that questioning that led me in that rabbit hole of, did you spark up a disorder that you never knew of? Or did you, is it something family genetic? Like all my parents and whatnot had anxiety and now you have it. You just never, brought it up. But once you tend to realize that, as long as you acknowledge it, it goes away. Maybe not like that, maybe not like a candlelight, but it will go away. Yes, some days it's going to come back. Yes, that'll happen. It'll be longer. But, as you start to relax and you really start to not take things so seriously, it'll all fall back in a circle, fall
Yeah.
back in a circle, as everybody say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I love that, because what I think people don't realize, and I know I'm saying that if I'm people, I didn't realize this. The questioning, oh, is this like that we have, that's a symptom of anxiety. It's not a true question that needs our answer. And it's not a true statement, but I
mhm.
have all these thoughts. Did I activate something? Is this my new normal? Like, is this genetic? And I think, yeah, we innocently sometimes read stories and it gets artificially prolonged, sometimes, but I love it because I see whatever sparks people's anxiety or experience of depersonalization or intrusive thoughts, the potential for it to be short-lived is always there. And also, it doesn't matter how long. If someone's experienced DPDR for 30 years, or anything, the potential for healing and innate health and well-being, it's always there. It's just that we can innocently get in our own way. And so I love that you talked about that, because I think the questions are part of the symptoms, but I think sometimes people don't see that. And so they think, well, I got to answer this question. That's a good question. And I think
Absolutely.
sometimes it's like our ego that's like, I don't really like, so you're not doing anything. You're just letting it be. You're just going to live your life and you're just going to feel this. I'd like something better and more complicated. Like, and that's kind of normal. Sometimes it's like, wait, it can't be this simple. And
Right.
it is this simple. Sometimes it's not that easy, because I do think sometimes we want, so tell me my 5-step plan. And when it's like, no, I like the idea of I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and meditate for an hour and just drink AG1, and then I'm going to eat keto because I think it's this. And it's like, also, you're welcome to do that. But it's like, I love that you said, go back to what you were doing the day before.
Yeah.
Like,
if you start off your day with a box of Pringles, you start off your day with a bag of Takis and a Mountain Dew energy drink. Like not to say drink caffeine and whatnot, not pushing out there, but in a sense that if you started your day with already having bad habits, right? If you started your day scrolling on TikTok mindlessly, do that. If you never went on walks before and that's what I believe a lot. If you never exercised before and you suddenly feel like, okay, I got to go to the gym because it helps with anxiety, you're defeating the purpose.
mm,
Because now that you've intellected that, and now that your brain knows, okay, we're exercising because we want to stop anxiety, it defeats the purpose. That's no longer a way to think about it anymore. Whereas if you just continue to what you were doing before, your anxiety is not going to associate that with the fact that, hey, you're doing this because of anxiety. No, I'm doing this because this is what I did every single day before that.
that is, I love that you said that so much, because I think we're going to save people time and money. Like I did such a detour with obsessing about my health. Um, and I was shocked because I was like, I'm eating like what the cavemen eat now in my primitive diet. I'm eating liver. It's grass fed. I got it, was blessed in a Native American blessing ceremony. I've never eating takeout. Like I went so far down the rabbit hole, and I would be
Mhm.
like, because that's what the book said.
Right.
It's great. And it's the technology. And it's just, I unplugged the Wi-Fi. I was never near my phone. I wore blue light block. Like the further I got, the more isolated I felt, because I was like, I really got to work on my mental health. And my ex-husband would smoke weed and eat snacks and watch TV. And I'd be like, I can't even see that TV. I never ate out. He would go to I made everything from scratch, my beauty products, my cleaning products. And I don't even need to go down that way, but like, it's the spirit that we do things in. So you can do, your people are free to do anything. But I love that you said that if we are meditating because we're trying to resist our experience, if we're going to the gym because we don't want to feel anxious or we don't want to feel depersonalized, if we're avoiding caffeine because of this or avoiding things, like there's nothing you have to do, but you're free to do anything. And it really is, if you have the understanding that, how we're designed as human beings, if you really have a deep understanding, you're free to do anything, but you don't have to
Right.
do anything. Like, and that's
Absolutely.
freeing, because when sometimes people think this is what I'm going to do to feel better, then they get in their head. That's why trying is often backwards, because it keeps people in their head, which you've talked about. We want to just be in our life, more in our life than in our head. And it's so much simpler. It's so much simpler. But we don't, that's why I always kind of try to bring that point home, because I don't think it's talked about enough. And I always
No.
try to make that point to talk to my kids about it, even just in simple ways. My daughter was bit by a dog about a week and a half ago, like right in her face. And it swelled up. But it was so interesting because she said, it's swelling to keep it in place. So she's 17. So everybody heals, but sometimes you heal so fast when you're just a young child too. They said she could have got 2 stitches, but she decided against it. They said it would be fine. So she had all these cuts. She was super swollen Thursday night. That Sunday, it was so crazy. We were at brunch with my parents. Midway through brunch, all of us were like, your swelling's gone down. And
Yeah.
then Monday night, she had all these super band-aids on. Within less than a week, it was almost all healed. Like it's almost gone. And so I take this time, look at our bodies. Like, you know, she just had to leave it alone. And we see that a lot with physical symptoms. And I'll say one more thing too. When we understand the predictable symptoms, like when we have a cold, a lot of the times people are able to leave their symptoms alone because they're predictable. Like, oh, I know that my throat hurts and one nostril gets clogged. And
Mhm.
actually, as I'm getting better, sometimes I cough up phlegm,
Right.
so when we understand the predictable symptoms, we don't think and we don't obsess, we don't control, we can actually have physical symptoms. And sometimes our brain can feel different, like we can feel foggy, um, but we leave it alone because it's predictable. So sometimes it can be helpful when it comes to intrusive thoughts, even the feeling behind it, or the thought. I love that you talked about, because a lot of people do worry the same thing. Like, what if I lost control and I hurt myself? I killed myself. I killed someone else. Those are my thoughts too. When we can see how predictable they are, and the predictable feelings of DPDR. And one of mine was always, but what if this is more?
Mhm.
Like, you're like, oh, um, it helps us just leave it alone, just like we
Right.
can trust in our innate healing abilities. And our mind has that too. And I think your proof, and also how relatively short your experience has been, even though I know that you're still on your way, like it, and that's so, it's like so cool, because I think this can counteract people that are like, I've had this for 25 years. And that's also pretty predictable. When I had lice, I got lice when I first started working in the schools as a school psychologist. This was like 15 years ago or
Mhm.
16. I got lice and I was like, oh my God. And I Googled it, and so then I find myself even, 15, 16 years ago on forums with people who are talking about super lice, people that are like, I've never gotten rid of my lice. This woman's like, I had to go on disability. She said, I shaved my head. Another person said, I lit my hair on fire. I was like, oh my God, this is me. And it sounds silly because it's lice, but we can find these stories about anything. So I was like, I just started working in schools. I was like, I guess it's super lice. Probably I never got lice again. I never got
Right.
lice again. And like, but it's like the forums, except there are some forums that recommend my social media. So thanks those forums. But like, really just save yourself the time and don't go on there because you can find scary shit about anything.
Absolutely.
I have diabetes. Mine's super easy. I'm going to live till hopefully 100, be very healthy. There are some people that don't have that experience. I don't want to hear those stories. And also just the fact that there are some people doesn't mean that's going to be your experience. There are so many people that are like you, where are have insights relatively really early, and it's a very short experience, and then you're on the way to healing.
It's yeah, absolutely. I totally 100% agree. There's always been this thing that's do not Google anything. Do not Reddit anything. One of the things I knew off the bat was not to do that because, a relative in my family on my grandma's side, she had passed away because of Google. And Google, I forgot what the actual contents and context of the entire story was. But apparently Google had directed her on how to treat a certain ailment or whatever. And Google was wrong and Safari was wrong. And she ended up losing her life because of it. That's why my grandma, and that's oh, I want to touch on that topic too really quickly. And that's not to say, don't Google things, right? Because when you go on social media, you have and gain insights like from you. Because it's not like you can't say, don't Reddit everything, but there's certain, I guess you could say there's credibility. There's sources where you can have people like you and people that put out that positive message rather than focusing on all the negatives. Like, sure, there might be negatives, but that's not your content. That's not what defines your content. Whereas you can go on Safari and it's very unfiltered and it's very, I've had this for 10 years, never works. Now I'm on Lexapro. Now I'm on all these several different medications and I live in a psychiatric hospital. No, because the second somebody sees that, they're gonna manifest it. They're gonna associate it. They're then gonna, just go deeper into that rabbit hole. Whereas I'm telling you right now, I don't know, I only studied psychology in high school for like 2 years, right? But I want to put my money on the fact that if I, in the beginning of all this, if I had never probably found out that this was anxiety, and I still don't even know if this is anxiety, but I mean, hey, that happens. But I'm pretty sure if I never found out this was anxiety, and let's say the placebo effect took place here, and I went to a doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, it's just because of the weed. The weed's still in your system." I guarantee you that I probably would not have had all these physical manifestations of symptoms and intrusive thoughts and whatnot because I hadn't searched up all that, and now I haven't put that in my brain. Because I like to think of the second that idea gets in your brain, you automatically want to relate. You automatically want to compare. You automatically go, "Oh, I'm having anxiety, and that person said they had anxiety and have this and this and that. Now I feel like I have this and this and that." You know what I mean? That's a whole nother thing on its own. But what I really wanted to touch up on is mental health awareness in general, especially with minority families, especially in the more Asian communities. I am a person of Asian descent. I come from a very, a family that practices like more mythological things. For example, in my race, when someone is diagnosed with cancer, um, it is preferred that we don't tell them because in Asian culture, we believe that it's not the cancer that kills the patient, it's the worry, it's the fear, it's all these physical manifestations. So what I found was really struggling throughout this journey was that my parents, yes, they were there for me. I am grateful. I am thankful for them. They were there when I was crying and couldn't breathe on the ground, you know, but at the same time, they were also the people who told me, you're fine. You're just overreacting. You're over exaggerating. And to any person that struggles with anxiety, OCD, depression, whatnot, hearing the word overreacting or over exaggerating can be the worst. It can be the most frustrating thing ever because you want to tell yourself no, you want to have that validation. Everyone's feelings are validated. You have the right and you are valid for feeling that way. But especially in Asian or more just minority communities in general, my parents they believe in mental health, but they don't believe in therapy. They don't believe in medicines. They don't believe in psychiatric, the psyche in general. They believe that, it's America today and that, oh, all they want to do is get your money from you and that they just want to put you on a pill, send you home with a band-aid on it and go bye-bye. And I understand where they're coming from. But at the same time, there's that boundary we got to place where, it's really, do I keep on letting myself suffer and really trying to please my parents? Or do I validate myself and realize, hey, I'm not in that same generation. I am now living in a generation where there is all these roots of mental health opportunity and awareness, that I can take to better myself. And I feel like a lot of times that younger community, almost much like me, if you're watching this or listening to this and you're, 17, 18, and you come from a family that is not accepting of therapy and whatnot, it's really, I'm not going to sit here and say, grow up, toughen up, take it on the chin. But it's really just you are responsible for taking it upon yourself to have to, validate yourself and be like, no, I love them. They're my parents, no matter what, through thick and thin. But at the same time, my mental health matters. I validate myself. I validate my mental health as much as I validate my physical health, and I'm going to take that into my own hands if I have to. Granted, the American healthcare system and whatnot has made it difficult for an 18-year-old with, not knowing what to do, how to manage it and whatnot, to get through. But there's that realization that I felt like I needed. And had I not realized that so early on, I wouldn't feel like I haven't had that head start that I feel like I did get as much as I did with seeing all these insights and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for saying that. And that's also why I want different voices to be heard, because mine is just of me, of a white older woman, like, or middle age, whatever, like, and I think I'm so happy that you shared that and that you were like, I wish I also hear that you were like, your parents loved you and they supported you and they gave you reassurance and unconditional love. And you still wanted some validation. And you're like, wait, okay, I'm going to validate myself and I'm going to support my mental health. And I
Mhm.
think that's such an amazing job of that. Um, really. And I think you've just like, I'm blown away by like how well you share too, how well you express yourself, and how fast when I've worked with a lot of young adults, sometimes when they haven't had an experience of anxiety outside of what you said, I like, oh yeah, you're nervous for a test. Sometimes it can come on fast and then it goes away. It's like it's the people that I'm thinking of, some of my clients who would have, and then it would be this really extreme, and then it's like gone, within a few
Right.
months. And it's like, oh, I just think it's such a hopeful conversation for anybody listening, whether it's something short that is a new experience for you, or this is something I used to identify as an anxious person. I was like an anxious kid. Everybody's default is actually clarity, peace of mind, feeling calm most of the time. Not all the time, because we're all humans. We all get caught up. Um, but there's always hope because there's always health. And I've just really enjoyed this conversation. I'm just so happy that you reached out to me and that we got to do this. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you made it. You've made it easy. You're very approachable. You're very welcoming, you're very greeting, you're very accepting, and you're unconditional. You know, you cater to everyone. It's not like you cater to a certain group or whatnot. And I feel like you deserve a lot of credit for that, you know, because I don't think you understand it. Had I never scrolled on that TikTok video, I don't think I'd be in this kind of better place. You know what I mean? Yes, granted, had I just went the route of just going down that rabbit bunny hole, I would still make it out, just not, I wouldn't be as fair off, and I would have spent so much more money than I had to and whatnot. But you know, really, that 3 a.m. video that I just happened to scroll upon was amazing for me, because after I went through and I did a scan of just all the TikToks you posted, and you know, I started to relate and feel a lot more comfortable, and I felt myself, you know, being like, wow, you know, this is stuff that I can put into my daily life and really enact it and just, you know, see what's going on. You know, at first I was skeptical, not gonna lie. First, because that's how you are with everything. You're gonna be skeptical. You know, you see this, you see people saying take magnesium glycinate,
Yeah.
because that's a big thing now. You see people taking magnesium glycinate. Oh, take a melatonin. Oh, spray magnesium and rub it on your body or on your feet, and that'll help you go to sleep. You're gonna be skeptical. But the second I actually started using the methods that you kind of teach and practice, the methods that you know, spread awareness about, that's when I really started to gain control over it. I really was like, because I went from a, this is just my life. This is, you know, if whatever happens, happens. If I freak out, I'm going to have to calm down, you know, to a point where it's like now I know that if I freak out, I'm going to get through it. I'm going to trust my mind and my body to get me through it, because I know how to do it, you know. And regardless if it's an intrusive thought, regardless if it's like a, oh, you know, I'm doing my laundry and I touched the bleach bottle, I drank bleach. No, I know I didn't, but that's going to pop up and it's going to scare me, and it's going to cost me three, you know, something dollars to go to the ER just for them to tell me you didn't drink bleach. But I know I'm going to get through it. Essentially, I know I'm going to be okay, because I know it's real. I know it's not. I am able to bring myself back to clarity regardless of what happens. And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of, you know, why we're having this conversation. And that's the beauty of, you know, the fact that you're putting out this kind of awareness and whatnot. And that's why I want to thank you so much for not only letting me be on here, but, you know, just helping me in general, even though I haven't had a session with you, even though I might not have gotten to, you know, be acquainted with you any other way. um, you have helped me. You have made it a very impact on my life, and I feel like you need to understand that there are millions of other people that probably haven't even reached out to you that are thankful for that kind of video that pops up on their For You page. So that's really amazing.
Well, thank you so much. And that's why, like, I get so excited when I first started sharing on social media. One of my very early videos that went viral, like almost 4 years ago, was about intrusive thoughts. And people were like, with this, I mean, this was because it was so early days. I would just screenshot every comment. And I literally had this thought. I'm like, I mean, also, I love my children. They are, but like, I thought I've never felt so fulfilled in my life. And for whatever better or worse, I literally thought I could die right now and I'm happy, because people were like, you saved my life with this, which I didn't. I just share stuff, I think, which people are like they get to take a sigh. And so for me to be able to reach people is the most fulfilled I've ever been in my entire life, because I want people. And I think what I love about what I get to share is it it just helps people like take breathe a sigh of relief, and it's like, oh, I can do this. Oh, this is achievable, this is doable, like, and it really helps people feel empowered and like, oh, I can handle this, and I don't have to, there's nothing out there, it's all in here. And it's the most empowering thing. And it's so hopeful. And I'm just so thankful that you said that, because I love, um, I make the videos that I would have needed to see, and when I started to feel better, I was like, well, why didn't anybody tell me, and also, if people knew, I know that they would tell me, and I think sometimes psychology has it backwards and people innocently overcomplicate it because they don't see how simple it is. And when I struggled with severe anxiety, and derealization and panic attacks and every OCD for 7 years, and nobody told me this until they did. And so then when I did, I was like, why isn't everybody? And I thought I needed to be in person because I was a school psychologist. Everything was in person. So I did share this as also, I thank you for that feedback, because whenever I talked, all my, I've been talking about intrusive thoughts for 17 years, because even before I knew what they were, every single person has intrusive thoughts. So I have kids that would come in and they would just get the vibe that they could tell me. And so I'd be like, oh yeah. And so that's why I think also when I started sharing TikTok, like I didn't, and I was real, I don't know, I'm going off on a tangent and I have to get my son in a minute, but like I get so happy when I'm like, oh, people feel like you see the authentic me, which is like, that was the feedback that I got as a school psychologist. People were like, oh, I feel like I could tell you anything and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And so I've been talking about intrusive thoughts, like feeling weird. I didn't have the word derealization and depersonalization, but like panic and anxiety and just all the thoughts that we can have and being a human and having and I think like my first therapist, Beverly, it felt more like we were equals, even if she had more than we were just sitting having a conversation. And I felt like, oh, I could tell her anything. And
Mhm.
I wanted to have that same energy where it's not like, I don't know more than you. We're having a conversation. And um, so thank you so much for telling me that, because that's I want my videos to be helpful. And I like long story, I do what I would have needed to see, because if someone told me, like I would have been like, what? Um, and sometimes I do the videos that I think other people need to see, but a lot of it's like, I was so surprised that I've had such a great people, 90 something percent are just people are so kind and they're like, oh my God. Also, I couldn't explain it when I was struggling. So that's why I'm blown away by how well you express yourself. I still don't think I express myself as well as you do. I
Right.
couldn't explain it. And I think part of that was like I didn't have the words and I was so afraid of being misunderstood and people being like, this is craziness. It's not anxiety. But I also literally couldn't explain it. I just couldn't explain it. And so when I had the words, I'm like, oh, I'm going to explain it. And so people say, oh, that's what it is. I'm going to share this with my, sometimes people send my videos to their family members, because like, this is what I've been experiencing. So thank you so much.
Of course. Of course.
Okay. Well, have a wonderful day. And it was so nice to get to meet you. Stay in touch.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Okay.